Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. It's not warm when she's away. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and she's always gone too long anytime she goes away. Wonder this time where she's gone. Wonder if she's gone to stay. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and this house just ain't no home anytime she goes away. And I know, 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 I know. Hey, I ought to leave the young thing alone. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. No, no. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. Only darkness every day. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and this house just ain't no home anytime she goes away. Yeah, anytime she goes away. Anytime she goes away. Anytime she goes away. For the best meat you have ever eaten in your life, go to samsbutchershop.com. Enter the coupon code Triple T when you check out for a 10% discount. Okay, I don't know what that was all about. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the channel, everybody. I appreciate you being here. We got a lot to talk about, so let's get going, and let's start with what I suppose should be, if not the border, it's certainly a huge story. We've got a crisis now, of course, with Iran that we've got to talk about. We had 3 service members killed a couple of days ago on the Syrian border. As you may know, this was a drone attack, and it killed 3 American service members and injured, at last count, as far as I know, 20 others. And the response to this attack was undoubtedly predictable. You had people, the usual suspects, the neocons in Washington, the Lindsey Grahams of the world, the Tom Cottons of the world, and various others who responded immediately to this event, which killed 3 of our people. Lindsey Graham tweeted this: "Hit Iran now, hit them hard." You would expect something like that from him. Senator John Cornyn of Texas tweeted, I quote, "Target Tehran." Mitch McConnell came out and puked out a statement that was somewhat similar to, the general theme that you're hearing, where he's calling for an attack in and on Iranian targets. Tom Cotton, neocon senator and war lover from Arkansas, said this, quote, "The only answer to these attacks must be devastating military retaliation against Iran's terrorist forces, both in Iran and across the Middle East." So there you have it. That's the response from the neocons. As of yet, there's been no response I'm aware of by Biden. He's kind of caught in between the hawks and the doves. I think the hawks far outnumber the doves, because you've got some people such as Lindsey Graham who just love war. They just love the notion of America. They can't imagine an America not at war. They cannot imagine America expanding her military footprint all over the world. He can't imagine there might be somewhere that isn't any of our business. He still sees Russia in terms of the old Soviet Union, of course. He's not updated his files. He was a puppet of John McCain, and he now simply echoes the things McCain would say. But the people who don't naturally love a warlike footing, many others who embrace a warlike footing have simply been bought off by the defense contractors. How many people in Washington, after this happened, actually stepped back and took a deep breath and just said to themselves, let's think for a minute about the best course of action from here forward? Can you imagine if Lindsey Graham was the president right now? He'd already be dropping bombs on Tehran. Does nobody stop anymore to consider the ramifications of our actions in Washington? There are consequences to every action you take. Certainly nobody or very few people in Washington stop to consider the financial consequences of everything that we do around the world, military or otherwise. But when it comes to military action, it's like nobody knows how to tap the brakes and say, let's think about this, let's be sober-minded before we respond. Lindsey Graham further said this. Listen to this. Lindsey Graham said that the 3 American soldiers killed in Jordan, these service members were on the Syrian border. They were in a small American military base in Jordan on the Syrian border where there's been a lot of conflict for several years now. Lindsey Graham said the 3 American soldiers killed in Jordan died to protect the homeland. Really, Senator Graham? These 3 soldiers died protecting the homeland? Was there a pending attack on New York or Washington or Los Angeles that I don't know about? I mean, the obvious question here that is glaring at all of us is simply this. Why do we have a base in Jordan? Why do we have troops on the Syrian border? Why are we there in the first place? Why isn't everyone asking the most obvious question? It's like the old question. It's a play on words. How do you get to how do you get to Radio City Music Hall? Lots of practice. Well, it's kind of similar. Why did 3 service members die in this attack? The question is, why are we there? Hello? You can go back and look in my videos if you want more on this topic. I don't want to get bogged down here, but I did a video a few months back on the topic of blowback. And it basically deals with the United States exporting our military to all these different pockets of the world where we've got no business, taking military action against countries where we have no business, and foolishly somehow believing, I guess, that there's not going to be any consequences for this. Folks, we've got no business being in Syria. We've got no business being in Jordan. We had no business being in Iraq. We've got no business being in Africa. And on and on and on it goes. We had no business, Bill Clinton, dropping bombs on Serbian Christians on Easter Sunday. We can expand our military all over the world, but again, we cannot defend our own border and protect our sovereignty as a nation. We can fight wars all over the world, but we can't address our own invasion. You know, it would be one thing if these 3 service members died on the Rio Grande fighting to protect our country from the invasion that's happening right now that Joe Biden won't lift a finger to do anything about. But instead, they died on the Syrian border, and nobody can figure out why. Why? I know what some people are saying, well, because of terrorism. Where did the terrorists come from, folks? Where did they come from? Is it possible we had a hand in creating terrorists? You do realize bin Laden was a CIA asset. That's not fantasy, that's reality. We trained him, we put him in place. He worked for us. And then he became useful to us in another way. All right, I want to get off of that onto something else. Let's move on to the another story about the American military, and I want to talk. This is true of, I think, of all the various branches, but this particular story has to do with the U.S. Navy. There's a story that appeared a couple of days ago in the UK Daily Mail, and the headline is this: "Ain't got no diploma. Navy lowers education requirements for enlistment, no longer requiring high school graduation as military struggles with recruiting amid woke policy push." So do you get the gist of the story? Let me read just a couple of paragraphs here. The U.S. Navy has lowered its education requirements and is starting to enlist individuals who didn't graduate from high school. Those joining the ranks won't have to have a high school diploma or general education development diploma, marking the second time in about a year the service has opened the door to lower performing recruits as it struggles to meet enlistment goals. The decision follows a move in December of 2022 to bring in a larger number of recruits who score very low on the Armed Services Qualification Test. Both are fairly rare steps that the other military services largely avoid or limit, even though they are all finding it increasingly difficult to attract the dwindling number of young people who can meet the military's physical, mental, and moral standards. So there you have it. This is what's happening. The United States military, the branches of the United States military are having trouble attracting recruits. And so now to attract recruits, they're lowering their standards. Used to have higher standards. But since they can't get enough people to join the military, they're going to lower the standards. Whatever happens when you lower your standards? What happens when you lower the bar, if you will? Now, the question that has to be asked is this: why are you having problems recruiting people? Well, let me ask another question. Who wants to join the military and serve under Joe Biden? Nobody I know. Nobody I know. Who wants to serve with this man as commander-in-chief, telling you what to do? Sending you perhaps, I don't know, to maybe the Syrian border? You know how they could increase their recruits? If they came out and said, if you join, we're going to put you on the Rio Grande River to help defend our country. I'll bet you'd have some flag-waving patriots join up then. But there's a bigger issue in play here I want to address that is a big factor as to why the military is having recruitment issues. And I'm going to tell you what it is. It's called DEI. How many know what I'm talking about? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is this is code for we're going to open the doors to every freak of nature we can find. We're going to open our doors to people who are sexual deviants. We're going to open our doors to people who identify as this or that or anything other than male or female. We're going to open our doors to Wokeness Inc. If you're woke, we want you in our military because the military has gone woke. And there is your problem in a nutshell. What parent that loves their child, what rational thinking American parent would either allow or want their child, their precious son or daughter, to join the military when the military has gone completely woke. This is an embarrassment. It is a disgrace to proud service members of the past. And I know there's some still in the military, but what is happening to our military is an utter disgrace. It has become a training ground for social experimentation where every deviant you can think of is welcomed with open arms. And they can go on up the ranks and become officers and eventually maybe on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It's happened. There's your recruitment problem in a nutshell. This is a crisis in our military. I mean, we're not only misassigning the personnel to places they got no business going, putting them in harm's way, but we're also actively recruiting every deviant we can find. I just had some notes here. I'm going to pause this video because I lost my place. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry, I lost my place there. I hit a button and I lost my notes. How many of you are in America and you watch Saturday Night Live? Saturday Night Live is a show that I have not seen literally in decades. I'll tell you the last time I watched Saturday Night Live. It was when Dana Carvey was in the cast. So that's been, 20 years? I don't know. I remember him doing impressions of Bush the Elder. It was pretty funny. But, the late night comic, the array of comedians, none of them are funny anymore. They're just not funny. The people who replaced Leno and those guys, Carson, they're just not funny anymore because they've gotten woke and they've gotten so politically hostile to those who are right of center, shall we say. If you voted for Trump, you're the butt of all their jokes. And it's the same with Saturday Night Live. But Saturday Night Live this past weekend made fools of themselves yet again. I didn't see this, but I did hear about it. This also is in the Daily Mail. The woke smugness is out of control, somebody tweeted. Saturday Night Live is blasted after mocking Trump for using the term debank, claiming he made it up, even though it is a common term to describe financial institutions closing accounts that they find risky. Have you heard of this term, debanking? Debanking is a legitimate term. Debanking is what Mike Lindell's banks either tried to do or did do to him. Debanking is essentially when your bank fires you. They say, we don't want you no more. We don't want your money anymore. And last week at a rally, President Trump used the phrase debank. During the show's Weekend Update segment, host Colin Jost, a Harvard graduate, said that he didn't know, quote, what the hell debank means, unquote. Quote again, Trump did have a slight stumble this week while talking about banks, and he introduced an interesting new term called debank. I don't know what the hell debank means, but you might have to take de-ambulance to see de-doctor, unquote. Jost, who serves as SNL's head writer, joked. Debanking, which can be also referred to as de-risking, occurs when a financial institution closes the account of someone deemed to be acting criminally or someone who could post a reputational risk to the bank. Well, the joke is on Colin Jost and on Saturday Night Live, mocking Trump for using the term debanking because they think it ain't a term. Well, guess what, doofuses or doofi? It is a term. Debanking is a term, and they faced a major backlash on Twitter. A man named Doug Powers tweeted, SNL is in such a hurry to dunk on Trump that they made themselves look like idiots again. Steve Guest tweeted, "The woke smugness from SNL is out of control." Michael Oxford tweeted, "This is similar to when Dennis Prager said they are putting tampons in men's bathrooms and Bill Maher's entire audience laughed at him. The left doesn't realize what's happening until it's too late. Then their cognitive dissonance forces them to just say to justify it's a good thing." So who's got egg on their face now? It's the left. It's not Trump. Trump was right. This happens all the time. These people don't know what they're talking about. They're just idiots. The lunatic left, the woke crowd, they don't know what they're talking about. And they're making fun of Trump for using a valid and legitimate term. Well, ha ha, Saturday Night Live. You're not funny, and the joke is on you. You think they'll come forward and say, "Oh, me a couple"? No, they're not going to do anything. All right, one more thing, and I'm going to close. I want to talk about a term that Rush Limbaugh, the great late Rush Limbaugh, popularized called symbolism over substance. He would talk often about Democrats saying these people are all about symbolism over substance. They talk a good game, but they never, correctly identify and address a legitimate problem. And I'm going to give some examples of this. And I'm going to show you how Democrats claim to be compassionate, but they are anything but. They are the opposite of it. And I'm going to give you 4 examples of this. Number 1, Democrats and some Republicans sponsored something called the CARES Act. How many remember the CARES Act? CARES is an acronym that stands for COVID Aid Relief and Economic Security Act. This happened back in, I believe it was 19 or 20. Congress passed a $2.2 trillion economic stimulus for Americans to get us through the COVID crisis. Well, here's a question for those who supported the CARES Act. Wouldn't it have been better to just not shut us down for the duration of COVID and kill untold numbers of small businesses and kill millions of jobs? I mean, how many people lost their jobs because of government action on COVID? Why couldn't you just leave the thing alone instead of forcing your will upon the American people and killing businesses and making people lose their jobs and shutting us down for an indeterminate amount of time? That's how you responded to COVID. This was under Trump, folks, let's be honest. When it became clear that we had been duped, how come he didn't fire little Lord Fauci, who should be in prison today at least? The CARES Act, number 1. Here's another one where you get the intention, but the outcome is always the opposite of what was intended, evidently. Number 2, how about the Inflation Reduction Act? It's another example of where you get the exact opposite of what Congress meant. We're going to pass a law and call it the Inflation Reduction Act, and Joe Biden's going to sign it, and by George, that's going to end inflation. When all we get is the exact opposite. All we get is more of it. Because again, the American government does one thing really well. That is, they meddle in places where they got no business. This is true militarily, and it's true economically. The Inflation Reduction Act only served to give us more inflation. If we would kill the Fed, the Federal Reserve, get us back on the gold standard and let free markets work, that would take care of inflation. How about another unintended consequence? Symbolism over substance, where we got the exact opposite of what we were told we would get. The Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare. And now we see the exact opposite. Instead of affordable health care, we got the exact opposite. And I've seen untold stories of people who had health care insurance premiums are maybe, I don't know, $200 a month, and now all of a sudden, because of Obamacare, they're like $1,000 a month. Thanks, Barry O. I have never wanted socialized medicine. I have never wanted government involved in my health care. Health care is between me and my doctor, period. I don't want the government involved in it. But of course, now we've all got a gun at our backs, and we have no choice. Thank you, John Roberts, for that. And lastly, another one, the Patriot Act. What was the Patriot Act? Everybody got on board and signed onto the Patriot Act, except Ron Paul. Because, you got to be patriots, right? The Patriot Act was nothing other than the government's war against law-abiding Americans. It was not the beginning of, but it absolutely caused the surveillance state to go forward like a shuttle blasting off. And now we're all being spied on. Eric Snowden told us that, and he had to flee the country. Eric Snowden is a patriot, by the way. The Patriot Act is nothing but a war on privacy. That's what it is. All right, that's what's going on this bright and cheerful sunny Tuesday. Marina's still in Missouri. Her father's surgery has been put off because the physician had some issues with his family, and now her dad's having surgery a week from this Friday. It was supposed to be this Friday, but now it's going to be a week from Friday, so she has to remain with them. Hence, something you may have seen earlier. I don't know. Just kidding around. That was actually her idea. Hey, give me your comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to like this video. Give me the big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already. Thanks for watching, everybody. Triple T here, and I'll see you soon.